On August 27, 1883, people thousands of kilometers from the Sunda Strait heard what sounded like distant artillery. On the island of Rodriguez in the western Indian Ocean, witnesses reported a roar like heavy guns. In parts of Australia, the sound was also heard far beyond any battlefield, but there was no war. The noise came from Krakatau, a volcanic island between Java and Sumatra in the Dutch East Indies. Within hours, pressure waves traveled around the planet, coastlines were struck by enormous tsunamis, and much of the island collapsed into the sea. For months afterward, strange sunsets appeared across the world. Krakatau did not merely destroy nearby towns. It announced itself to the entire planet. If forgotten disasters and the human stories behind them fascinate you, subscribe to Past Imperfect. Here, we explore the moments when history broke without warning. This is the day Krakatau broke the world. Krakatau stood in one of the most important waterways in Southeast Asia. The Sunda Strait separated Java from Sumatra and connected major trading routes between the Indian Ocean and the seas farther east. Fishing boats crossed these waters. Sailing ships passed the island. Steamships carried passengers, mail, military personnel, and commercial cargo through the strait. To those who saw it from a distance, Krakatau was part of the tropical landscape. Its steep volcanic peaks rose above thick vegetation, surrounded by smaller islands and open water. The region was already known for earthquakes and volcanic activity. Yet ordinary life continued along the nearby coasts. Villages depended on fishing, farming, and trade. Ports served the Dutch colonial economy. Few people imagined that the island itself was approaching a transformation violent enough to reshape the map. The first major warnings came in May 1883. Explosions were heard from the island. Ash rose into the sky. Ships reported falling dust and pumice. People on nearby coasts could see columns forming above Krakatau. At first, the activity attracted curiosity. Some visitors even traveled closer to observe the eruption. The volcano appeared dangerous, but not yet world-changing. Weeks passed. The eruptions continued unevenly. There were periods of noise, smoke, and ash, followed by quieter intervals. That pattern created uncertainty. Was the volcano building towards something greater, or was it slowly releasing pressure? In the 19th century, volcanology was still developing. There was no satellite monitoring, no network of digital seismometers, no instant warning system capable of reaching every coastal settlement. People relied on what they could hear, see, and feel. And those signs did not come with an explanation. By late August, Krakatau had become far more violent. On Sunday, August 26th, powerful explosions sent ash high into the atmosphere. The sky darkened across parts of the Sunda Strait. Ash and pumice fell onto ships. Crews reported repeated detonations and intense electrical activity around the eruption cloud. The violence continued through the night. For people aboard vessels in the strait, there was nowhere simple to hide. For communities along the coasts of Java and Sumatra, the danger was difficult to judge. Some were many kilometers from the island. The volcano looked distant. But distance would offer little protection from what happened next. On the morning of August 27th, 4 major explosions occurred. The last and greatest came at approximately 10:02 in the morning. The sound traveled across an extraordinary area. Atmospheric pressure waves moved outward from the eruption and were recorded by instruments around the world. Some barometers registered the wave repeatedly as it circled the globe. The planet itself had become part of the record. The famous explosion was only one part of the catastrophe. As the eruption emptied and disrupted the volcanic system, large sections of Krakatau collapsed. The central part of the island fell into a newly formed caldera. Water, volcanic debris, collapsing rock, and powerful pyroclastic flows interacted in ways that generated enormous waves. Scientists still study the exact contribution of each process. What is certain is that the tsunamis became the main killers. Walls of water crossed the Sunda Strait and struck nearby coastlines. In some locations, waves reached heights of several tens of meters. Coastal settlements were erased. Buildings were torn apart. Trees were uprooted. Boats were thrown inland or destroyed. People who survived the ash and sound were suddenly confronted by the sea. More than 36,000 deaths are generally associated with the disaster, and the overwhelming majority were caused by the tsunamis. The number is so large that it can become abstract. But each figure represents a household, a village, a shoreline, and a life interrupted within minutes. If this story is helping you understand the true scale of Krakatau, consider leaving a like. It helps Past Imperfect continue bringing carefully researched history to a wider audience. The destruction was concentrated along the coasts of western Java and southern Sumatra. Hundreds of settlements were damaged or destroyed. At places such as Anyer, Merak, and the region around Telok Betong, the water arrived with devastating force. The waves carried wreckage, trees, sections of buildings, and boats. Some survivors were swept far from where they had been standing. Others escaped only because they reached higher ground. The disaster also damaged lighthouses and port facilities that had helped guide ships through the strait. One of the most haunting features of the event was its speed. The volcano had shown signs for months, but the final destruction unfolded over a short span of time. A familiar coastline could become unrecognizable before people fully understood what was happening. Krakatau turned geography into a weapon. The eruption became a global scientific event because the 19th century was increasingly connected. Telegraph networks transmitted news across long distances. Newspapers compared reports from ships, ports, colonies, and observatories. Scientists gathered barometer readings and eyewitness accounts. The Royal Society in Britain later organized a major investigation, collecting observations from around the world. The pressure wave offered evidence that the atmosphere could carry the signature of a single event across the planet. Ocean disturbances were recorded far beyond Indonesia. The disaster happened in the Sunda Strait, but its traces appeared on instruments thousands of kilometers away. Krakatau was one of the first great natural catastrophes examined by an increasingly global scientific community. It revealed that Earth was not a collection of isolated regions. Atmosphere, ocean, and climate connected them all. Fine volcanic material reached high into the atmosphere and spread around the world. In the months that followed, observers reported unusual twilight colors. Sunsets glowed red, orange, purple, and sometimes green. Artists tried to capture the strange skies. Scientists debated what caused them. People who had never heard the eruption still looked up and saw its aftermath. The atmospheric effects also contributed to a temporary cooling of global temperatures. Krakatau did not create a frozen world, but it demonstrated how a major eruption could influence climate far beyond the volcano itself. The event became a lesson in planetary consequences. A mountain could collapse in Indonesia, and people in Europe or North America could watch the light change. When the main eruption ended, much of Krakatau was gone. The islands of Danan and Perbuatan had disappeared. Only part of Rakata remained above the sea. Where peaks had once stood, there was now a vast caldera beneath the water. The map had been rewritten. Yet volcanic systems do not follow the neat endings of human stories. In 1927, new eruptions began building an island inside the old caldera. It became known as Anak Krakatau, the child of Krakatau. Over the following decades, it grew from the sea. The name carried both memory and warning. The original island had been shattered, but the volcanic system remained active. In December 2018, part of Anak Krakatau collapsed and generated another deadly tsunami in the Sunda Strait. The new disaster was much smaller than the catastrophe of 1883, but it proved that the danger had never completely disappeared. Krakatau changed the study of volcanic disasters. It showed that eruptions could kill far beyond the volcano through tsunamis, pressure waves, ashfall, and atmospheric effects. It demonstrated the importance of collecting observations from ships, coastal communities, weather stations, and distant instruments. It also revealed the limits of human perception. A volcano may look remote, A sea may appear calm. A quiet interval may feel reassuring. None of those things guarantee safety. Modern monitoring systems are far more advanced than anything available in 1883. Scientists can track earthquakes, deformation, gas emissions, and changes in volcanic activity. Tsunami warning networks can detect waves and issue alerts. But technology cannot erase risk. It can only give people a better chance to understand it and act. Before we end, tell us what you find most frightening about Krakatau. Was it the explosion heard thousands of kilometers away? The pressure wave circling the planet? Or the tsunamis that reached the coast with overwhelming force? Share your answer in the comments. Krakatau did not destroy the world. But for the people of the Sunda Strait, it destroyed the world they knew. It erased towns. It shattered coastlines. It changed the sky. And it forced scientists to think of natural disasters on a global scale. The eruption was heard across oceans, measured around the planet, and remembered in sunsets far from Indonesia. Even after the island collapsed, its story continued beneath the sea. Then a new volcano rose from the remains. That may be the most unsettling lesson of Krakatau. Disasters do not always end when the noise stops. Sometimes the landscape keeps the memory alive. If you know someone who is fascinated by forgotten disasters, share this story with them. Some chapters of history deserve to be remembered together. And subscribe to Past Imperfect for more lost cities, broken worlds, and moments when the past revealed how fragile human life could be.